Recording. All right. Well, Gary, we're back for our afternoon session. What's on the agenda?
We're going to start and conclude the issues list from this morning. First is legal representation policy. Stephen, would you like to recap, please?
Sure. Good afternoon, commissioners. This is a revisit again from this morning, as Gary mentioned, of the new retention of outside legal counsel policy. We have before you a policy that gives you greater discretion and has clear guidance on when outside legal counsel can and should and would be requested and approved and paid for. Commissioner Fisher had some questions over the course of the lunchtime hour about what areas were actually changed and highlighted, and I had provided her with copies of that. And I also pointed out that some of the more discretionary language, so to speak, is under paragraph 5, where it says that the board maintains discretion to determine what is in the best interest of the county with respect to the payment of legal expenses. That is a provision that was not in the existing outside legal counsel representation policy. And what that does, that gives the board the discretion to decide, is it in the best interest of the county to pay for these fees, regardless of what the situation might be, and the amount of fees as well. So it gives the board a lot of latitude to make those determinations. So that is some of the language that's new that's in there, and that was proposed as a result of the March 2020 session. And I'm here to answer any follow-up questions that folks might have.
I don't see any questions. Sonia, did you get your questions answered?
Yeah, Stephen's awesome, you guys.
Want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we approve this policy for legal fees.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the policy. Any further discussion? Christina, please poll us.
Aye.
You're on
Sure.
mute. Oh, there you go.
Okay. So Commissioner Fisher was an aye. Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Next item, Gary.
Thank you, commissioners. Just one last item is that since March of last year, the format of county policies has changed. So this document will stay the same in terms of its content, but some of the headings might change. But as effective today, it will be part of the official county policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, following up on your board priorities you asked staff to accomplish between September and December. You had 5. I want to update you on the status since this is your last meeting of your work sessions. First was ambulance services contract update. You're having a policy session on that today. The county courthouse, you discussed that at issues. We are still moving forward on the P3 analysis, which the new board will receive in January. And then we will discuss next steps with the board at that time. Short-term rentals is completed. The Careers to Construction Pathways project is completed. The Vets Village you will hear about later today. So staff has accomplished all of the things you had asked us to focus on, and you commissioners have accomplished them as well. So I wanted to close the loop with you. Thank you for your leadership and support. Next, your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, December 17th. You have 6 pages of consent agenda items. Both the Housing Authority, Clackamas County General Government, and Water Environment Services. You have a reading and adoption of a previously approved land use ordinance, 2 public hearings, and 1 public discussion item. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them prior to Thursday, and will do my best to answer them on Thursday if you have them there as well. The last item is Commissioner Communications that either you could do now or we could do at the end of today, up to your discretion.
End of the day.
End of the day. All right.
We'll loop back to that. So then we're ready for your first policy session today. It is update on the Coalition of Communities of Color work and anti-displacement strategy. We have staff from County Administration, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and the Department of Transportation and Development, and they are Martine Koblenz, Emily Klepper, and Jamie Stasny. So whoever is taking the lead, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. It's good to see all of you this afternoon. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, good. My name is Emily Klepper, and I'm a policy advisor in county administration. I'm joined today by Martine and Jamie, who Gary just introduced. Today, we're here to give you an update on the current EDI work completed by the Coalition of Communities of Color, and also to get board direction around how to develop an anti-displacement strategy framework for Clackamas County. In your policy session materials, anti-displacement is defined as a set of goals and strategies used to mitigate the negative impacts of change in economic and physical conditions in neighborhoods with a high concentration of residents who are vulnerable to displacement. And I think you can see from the definition that this work should be connected to what our Office of Equity and Inclusion is already doing, which is why we're giving you an update today. We're bringing this to you now so we can plan for 2021. To be clear, today is not the day to roll up your sleeves and have a really in-depth discussion that would result in an actual set of anti-displacement policies. That will come later. But this is really important work, and it's going to take some time to complete, but we know that there is a lot of board interest in this topic. Earlier this year, Commissioner Savas brought this up to the board as something he'd like to discuss. And then again, just recently at the December 2nd Park Avenue Community Project update, the board approved the development of an anti-displacement policy specifically targeting that community. I'll also just mention that work on anti-displacement fits really nicely in the EDI policy perspective that the board included in its strategic plan, Performance Clackamas. So I'll let my colleagues go ahead now and give you a little more information about both topics, and then we'll conclude with our staff recommendation about how to move forward. So Martine.
Good afternoon.
No, go ahead.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair Bernard and Commissioners and Gary Schmidt. I'm Martine Koblenz. I'm the County Equity and Inclusion Officer. I use she, her pronouns. Thank you for your time today. First, I want to tie in the definition you just heard on anti-displacement, focusing on the impacts to our underrepresented and vulnerable populations. So bear with me as I broaden our scope a bit as we think about Clackamas County and how we are serving our communities who are most at risk of displacement. To do that, I'm going to describe the work the county has embarked on with the Coalition of Communities of Color in order to provide a greater context to our proposal today for anti-displacement education and strategies. So the Coalition of Communities of Color is an organization whose mission is to address the socio and economic disparities, institutional racism, and inequities of services experienced by families, children, and communities. They organize communities of color for collective action resulting in social change to obtain self-determination, wellness, justice, and prosperity. The Coalition of Communities of Color has conducted research with many organizations and jurisdictions, including our neighboring counties, Multnomah and Washington County. The study has multiple steps: performing an environmental scan, building and strengthening relationships in the county, collecting and analyzing qualitative and quantitative data about communities of color, incorporating community-based verification processes, and a call to action. So as you know, the board in May 2019 approved the first step, May 2020, this year, the first step of in Clackamas County with the Coalition of Communities of Color by performing the environmental scan, which is now complete. The purpose of the scan was to establish a baseline knowledge of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, how are communities of color being engaged throughout the county, a preliminary sense of the needs and the challenges and the strengths, and an initial understanding of our racial and ethnic demographic makeup. So the environmental report scan, it provides us with both evidence as to why this work matters in our county, as well as a guide on how we move forward on engaging community meaningfully. So looking through a broader lens, the communities of color and underrepresented populations, they're impacted by the strategies and the policies and initiatives that are implemented at the county. As relationships are built and improved with communities of color, the county will be better informed and equipped to address strategies such as anti-displacement. In the next 2 years, we will be embarking on a research justice approach where communities of color are invited to actively participate in strategies and initiatives that impact them and their communities. The strategies that are built in co-collaboration with community is really the definition of meaningful engagement. We will better learn what that looks like as we move forward with this research process. With that framework in mind, Jamie will now bring the conversation back to anti-displacement strategy and our proposal to the board in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Martine. Hi, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. Good to see you all. Happy to be back in front of you talking about such an important topic. So as Emily shared with you, on July 14th, Commissioner Paul Savas brought forward a request that you all talk about anti-displacement strategies, and you agreed. That's why we're here today. Also, in the Park Avenue planning effort, there was a hearing, or you all heard about that on December 2nd. There was some specific information discussed about anti-displacement. So there's been some recent occurrence as well. So staff got to work looking into this issue back after that request came from Commissioner Savas in July. And we realized that there's already multiple county departments doing work on anti-displacement. And BCS, H3S, DTD, and the Housing Authority all receive a variety of regional, state, and federal dollars that require the county to abide by policies around anti-displacement. Some examples are Community Development Division must meet their Uniform Relocation Act for any displacement that occurs due to community development block grant projects. Also, DTD must comply with URA for right-of-way acquisition for capital improvement projects. And in the Park Avenue Community Project, things got a little more detailed. A residential anti-displacement best practices memo was developed. This memo includes 10 common anti-displacement strategies, as well as links to more detailed information. In addition, a business community investment strategy was developed, which identified actions to support businesses' ability to stay in an area experiencing investment and rising property values. Also, regionally, Metro is working on a number of projects where anti-displacement strategies are being developed, such as the Southwest Corridor Plan. Also, robust discussion about anti-displacement and policies have been included in the development of the 2018 Metro Housing Bond and the Get Moving 2020 Transportation Investment Measure development as well. So there's been a lot of talk regionally and also at some of our other agencies in the region who are working to develop specific anti-displacement policies for themselves. Some examples there are Beaverton's downtown policy that they're working on right now, and some early policy conversations going on at Washington County. So I think many different groups are beginning to have this discussion. Some are further along than others. So when you all had your Park Avenue Community Project conversation back on December 2nd, you made the decision not only to acknowledge the work of the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee, and you also approved moving forward the draft development design standard recommendations into a zoning code amendment. And you asked us, or you asked staff to develop an anti-displacement policy specific for the area. And I want to take a quick moment just to say, there's the broad policy around anti-displacement, the policy, the principles that we really need high-level guidance on. But once we have those developed, then staff will be able to apply those to help develop specific tailored anti-displacement plans, because really these plans are place-specific. We can't make one set of policies and say these will apply in every case. It certainly is very place-specific, community-specific. So we really need that high-level guidance, and we need to ground that in the Coalition of Communities of Color work that Martine was sharing about, so that we can understand who our community members are, maybe who wasn't at the table to be a part of those conversations in the past, and make sure that we're creating equitable engagement opportunities so that we don't recreate that situation. So as staff, our recommendation is that our recommendation around this is it's complicated. We can't do this in a 30-minute policy session. We really need more time with you. And we need some subject matter experts from outside the county to help us with the education component because it's very complex. So we are asking to help you all create clear policy guidance for us that we would like to schedule 2 1.5-hour planning sessions with you in 2021. This would give us enough time to talk with you all in a little more depth about the educational piece. So this first session we're recommending would allow focus on that educational component with external subject matter experts. It would provide an introduction to displacement and broad context, including common language and definition. And then the second planning session would allow an opportunity for you all to dig in deeply to the details and focus on one of those place-specific policies or plans, which would be for the Park Avenue community project, as you directed earlier this month. So that is our request that we have for you, our recommendation, and we're happy to take any questions and invite discussion. So
I'd
thank
like
you.
to see them be 10-hour planning sessions, 24. So Paul and then Sonia.
Yeah, I appreciate the staff report. Thank you, Jamie and Martine and Emily for your presentation. And yeah, we can't even scratch the surface hardly in the limited amount of time we have. And I'm happy to embark on a study, but I don't think that's enough in and of itself. I think it is historically communities of color that around our country have been the most impacted. That goes without saying. There are books written about it. There is considerable data, white papers. There's people that have spent their entire life studying this, the economic impacts of how cities develop or counties develop and how people are impacted. But it's important to say that, while communities of color are impacted, so is everyone else. Everyone's impacted by this. And so my point there is that and I mentioned this earlier, but in a different context, I'm going to bring it up again. I remember when Commissioner Leininger was part of this commission and I drove her down to the Park Avenue area and we parked and I spent 2 or 3 hours driving her around showing her the housing that was nearby. And a lot of that was low income housing. And I told her what the rents were currently in those areas. And since then, and I told her my concern was if we start making all of these changes, light rail, transit, and zoning changes and everything else that's planned here, we're going to have a negative impact on these people and rents are going to rise and gentrification is going to happen. And of course, she didn't want that to happen. And she was convinced that it probably wouldn't happen. And I consider Ann a friend, so I'm not here to disparage anyone. And I'm very, very proud of the work that she's done. However, it turns out that the rents in that area, a lot of them have doubled or more. And that affects all people in our area. There are white papers, there are experts. I've been at this since 2018. Actually, when Commissioner Leininger was here, that was 6 years ago. I've been trying to ring this bell for a long time. We had an opportunity. I thought we had a lot of buy-in 2 years ago in 2018 when we had a panel of housing developers come to us. And I said, hey, this is a great format. They're talking to us, we're listening, they're giving us their stories. And I thought, what a great type panel set up to kick off the anti-displacement, invite our city members, invite the public, just like we were for them. So I thought we're to get traction on that. That never got anywhere. At our District 8 meeting in early 2019, I thought that we had Multnomah County Commissioners and Washington County Commissioners and Clackamas County Commissioners interested in moving this on. Didn't happen. So while I think there's merit to proceeding forward with the studies and so forth, I think that putting together a panel to educate us and to take some learned lessons and apply some of the common-based solutions, we call it the toolbox, that other areas have learned. When I say other areas outside of Oregon have experienced this, and put that in our toolbox and implement that as filters when we go about doing some of these projects or investments in our community, and we can have an impact sooner than we could later, waiting for all these other studies to be done. So I support the staff recommendation, but I'm urging you and trying to make the point that's not enough soon enough. And I have talked to PhDs. I've talked to people that were willing to come out here and actually be part of the panel with Zoom. We could do that a lot easier because they don't even have to fly out here any longer. We have a format in which we can actually have those presentations. We need adequate time. It is so complex, it's not easy for people to really understand. But at least if there's buy-in on some basic guidelines or called toolbox of suggestions to look at, especially when it comes to zoning changes, that is the most vulnerable area. There's people in this area that are knowledgeable about it, as long as they have the political freedom to express their views without any retribution. So that's my suggestion. That's what I have for today. And I'm hoping that we can put something together in the interim.
Okay, Sonia and Martha.
The issue that's been in Portland with the red house, is everybody familiar following that story? Right, hand raised. Yeah, and Martha and Paul and I don't know what Ken's doing, but that really, regardless of all of the intricacies of that certain situation, it really brought to the forefront that, you know, we are local government. There are so many forces beyond us, like what's happening in the mortgage industry and what's happened with subprime loans and different issues like that. One thing that I would love, since we do have the ear of our state legislators and our congressional delegation, is help for us to know if these overarching policies affect us here locally, and if so, how much do they affect us? Like, is it a real problem where people are losing their homes to foreclosure due to not being able to pay increased mortgage interest rates or increased payments? And if so, what should that be part of any of our state or federal agendas as we advocate? Because that is a real problem when people lose their houses and then they get developed into expensive housing. That's part of the problem with gentrification. So just throwing that out there, making that part of the puzzle. And I appreciate that this is complex, but what I would caution us on is that all issues are complex, and we really need to prioritize where we as a board really engage into the deep complexities, or where we set a policy direction and let our staff lead the way. And with something like this, I think that setting the policy direction is important and giving staff latitude. And I really appreciated when we sat down with those developers that with Anna Geller and Homer Williams, and then we brought in the different cities and we had those conversations. That led to our housing and homelessness task force, which laid the framework for our priorities that laid the framework for wraparound services, for homeless services to really help. So I think that the initial discussions do really matter, and they make a big difference. And I think that they've made a difference in the past. So Paul, I respectfully disagree with you on that those forums didn't lead anywhere, because I think that they have. And change takes time. We have to understand that as well.
Martha?
Yeah, where's the environmental scan, and do we have a copy of that?
So I have the environmental scan report, and we'll be reporting back more fully to the board with some next steps, some options for next steps, and we'll be sharing that with you.
Okay, yeah, because I can't make any judgments until I get an idea of where the there is, quite frankly. And, you know, what I'm trying to find out is where the demographics of the community of color and I know we've done work on prosperity collaboratives and all these other things, and we know where pockets of poverty are, and I would like to see them tied to those communities. I mean, is it largely Hispanic? Is it largely Asian? Is it largely, and then what are the strategies that we do based on the geography. And I just feel like this is great, but it's kind of not really. What do you need from us today? Do you want me to give you a list of strategies? I mean, we should look it up. We could do that. I mean, I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's.
Can I answer the first part, and Emily, you answer the second? So
Yeah.
just so you know, the environmental scan is meant to be a preliminary research process. It is only scratching the surface of some of our racial and ethnic demographic data. The DEI efforts that are happening in our county with all the jurisdictions that are within this county. And it's sort of the jumping point for the actual in-depth study that will take place. So it is great information, but I just want you to know that it's not the end-all report, the final report of a study of a process that we will eventually have. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, because I didn't know, we've been talking about it for a while. So it's still the actual document and the policies with a list tied to geographic areas is going to happen. Am I just being too concrete? I don't know.
There is an actual document, and it's an initial report. It's a report to help guide how we will continue the work within Clackamas County in collecting both quantitative and qualitative data regarding communities of color, the various breakdowns of racial and ethnic demographics. And so there will be a larger report. You know, if you went and looked at Washington County's full report, it's a very large comprehensive report, and that's at the end of a 2 to 3 year process. So we're just at the very beginning of a longer process.
I'm kind of already thinking, should we be done with year 3, and we're not? Okay, I got it.
We just started this year, yeah.
Okay, and Emily, did you want to add something?
Yeah, may I? So first, I'll just answer your question, Commissioner, and in that we're hoping that the board will agree with our option 1 to move forward with the planning sessions that we proposed. We'd like to do 2 at least in 2021. We absolutely agree with you, Commissioner Savas. This is a big topic, and we'd like to establish a baseline of understanding across the board and the commission members, because it is so big. And there are lots of options for you guys to consider as far as what policies will work in Clackamas County. And we do that by knowing who our folks are and who makes up our communities and what our communities look like. And I think we can do that work concurrently with the work that the department, or sorry, Martine, I completely forgot the name of your office.
Office of Equity and Inclusion.
Perfect. So while that study is happening, we believe that this work can happen concurrently. So you've expressed an interest as a board to move forward a set of strategies for the Park Avenue area. We're going to use that as our kind of, I don't mean to maybe test case, but I don't think that's quite the right word, but we need an area to focus on to try this out in, and you've expressed an interest in doing that. So that's our plan, establish an education framework for you, and then to kind of dive into that community and their specific needs and what the board would like to explore as options. Does that make sense? Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we had done your work years ago. I just want to do a follow-up here for Overland Park. Have we found that? Because we specifically designed an urban renewal district that did not, was an anti-displacement policy framework. So we have a model, but I don't know if anybody's looked at it in a while. I don't even know where it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's in the development agency kind of portfolio, and we will pull out those things that we have looked at already, similar to what Jamie outlined earlier as far as what the county's already been doing. We'll look at that, look at what's been successful, vet that with you guys, and then walk you through some other lessons learned in other areas, that kind of stuff.
Well, we basically revitalized the entire area with sewer and all kinds of strategies without gentrifying it. That is what I remember, and we were very intentional about it. And I really don't know if there's any way we can find that report. It'd be kind of interesting to take a look at it again. So.
Yeah,
You can do
Good,
that. Okay.
If we don't have it, Milwaukee has it because I was mayor when that happened.
Yeah, and it was extremely successful.
Yep.
We also helped people get caught up to sewers and fix roads, and we basically kept them in their homes.
Yep.
At the same time. Thanks.
Paul? Aye.
The Overland Park area is outside Milwaukee, but in the UGMA, and that was a success. And every situation is different, and it's really about the type of investment, whether it's public or private. And of course, the Overland Park was basically a sewer investment more so than it was any other thing. So that was well done, and I saw the before and after. And but you know, gentrification at the level we're talking about and the level of investment that we're talking about, it's imperative we get in front of it. So I'm happily going to support, you know, the option one that's before us. But I did want to address the Commissioner Fisher's comments to some degree, but more of an aside, and that is that if you live through it and you watch it happen, it's far different than when you don't, or you live in a different area where you don't experience those very things. So I will just say that when you do the research and you read all the material, knowledge and information is extremely educational, it's extremely powerful, and is needed when you're making decisions at our level. The decisions we make or we don't make will impact the lives of our citizens. And it's very clear that those folks that are living under tents or sleeping in their cars, that we're not really doing our job as good as we could.
And by the way, Overland Park, part of all of it was outside Milwaukee's UGB, but we required that some of it annexed to the city of Milwaukee to hook to the sewer. So I caught a lot of flack from people back then. But anyway, so great. Someone want to make a motion?
I move we approve option one.
Second.
It's been moved in and seconded that we approve option one, but increase those to 10-hour sessions. Christina, would you please poll it?
Of course. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader? Your mic is off, Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for the report. And I'm sorry I won't be there. I will be displaced.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, thanks. Gary, what's up?
Thank you.
Next is Veterans Village Pilot Program Assessment. We have staff from Health, Housing, and Human Services and County Administration. So Emily will stay for this one, and we'll bring in Rich Swift and Vahid Brown from Health, Housing, and Human Services. All right, whoever is starting, please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, commissioners. So the Vets Village, this is a project actually that has grown near and dear to our hearts in terms of from essentially a gravel site to a full-blown, village that has a strong sense of community. And so what we have for you today is, and I'll turn this over to Vahid in a moment. And we also, other invitees might be Dan Johnson. I'm sure he is probably in the audience. But so what we have for you is essentially an overview of how it's gone since we started this today. And part of the packet is a collection of costs that Steve Kelly did for us in terms of from start to now, what the investments that we've made. And then also a report on the pilot from Do Good Multnomah, now known as Greater Good. This project has been very successful. It has been an outstanding partnership, both internally within the county to make this work, and then also externally with Do Good. They've been a really awesome partner. And actually, this partnership has led to their work, like at Clayton Moore and other places that were looking at the contract for non-congregate sheltering at Econo Lodge. They're going to be carrying that, and they have just been an outstanding performer. So with that, what I'll do, and we do at the end have some recommendations for the board we can review with you, and we actually also are recommending one particular action in particular. So we can talk about that at the end. But with this, I'll turn it over to Heed, who has just been outstanding in terms of his administration of this, of the Vets Village. So Heed.
Thank you, Rich. Good afternoon, commissioners. As Rich said, I want to review some of the outcomes and highlights from the pilot operation of the Vet Village program. As Rich said, it's been a successful program. I've been giving regular updates to the commissioners about the progress of the village since it began. So I think this will be somewhat of a cumulative reminder of all of the milestones that we noted and at times celebrated over the years of this project. I'm going to sort of draw initially from the pilot report from Do Good Multnomah, which kind of summarizes some of the outcomes. And then Emily Klepper will speak to some of the neighborhood engagement. And there'll be a short film that was produced for this presentation about the village. And then we can transition to the conversation about the recommendations. The Clackamas County Veterans Village, as you know, was established in 2018. It has, since its inception, served 55 veterans experiencing homelessness. 26 of those veterans are now in permanent housing. 16 of those in housing are in permanent supportive housing. So they have ongoing services support in their housing situations. And there are 19 current participants in the village. In 2018, the village served 17 veterans experiencing homelessness and transitioned 3 of them into housing. In 2019, it served an additional 32 veterans and transitioning 15 into housing. And year to date, as of about a month ago, the Veterans Village served 31 veterans experiencing homelessness, with 8 transitioning into housing, which is remarkable given that the COVID crisis really interrupted a lot of our processes in terms of working with landlords and case management and in-person kinds of things. I have shared over the years of updates with the commissioners some highlights of success stories and standout accomplishments of some of the participants in the program. Do Good has provided a few additional ones, and I want to just share those as well. These are individual stories of success of those who were served by the village. A veteran who came to Veterans Village in June of 2019, their largest barrier was a low credit and a large amount of debt. With Do Good's support, the veteran was able to get their credit score to 750. And in late October of 2020, this veteran put an offer on a house that was accepted and will be moving into their home for the first time in years. A male veteran found his way to Veterans Village due to domestic violence. This veteran had nothing because he had left an abusive relationship. Through the program, he was able to find safety. Veterans Village was able to provide a healing environment, an environment that was able to provide a peaceful atmosphere, largely due to its location, not being within a busy city. He was able to start his healing and moved out in August of 2020. He now volunteers to pick up food donations and cooks large meals for all the vets and Veterans Village a couple times a week. A 70-plus-year-old veteran living in his van due to being evicted found himself at Veterans Village. This veteran was able to obtain permanent housing at Clayton Moore Commons, and later was able to secure a home in Arizona with his daughter and grandchildren. The demographic breakdown of the veterans served is also provided in the Do Good pilot report that is in your packet. I'm going to move from the people served and the outcomes with respect to housing, which have been excellent, to some of the additional kind of partnerships established and in-kind contributions made to this program over the 2-year pilot. With support from the Home Builders Foundation, additional pods have been added to the village. And as we know, initially, there were 30 pads created and 15 pods provided. So the village began with 15 pods. 9 additional pods have come to the village through the work and the in-kind contributions of the Home Builders Foundation. 4 of those are occupied by veterans in the program. So the program is now serving 19 veterans at a time. an increase from 15 at the beginning of the program. The estimated total value of the in-kind contribution from the Home Builders Foundation in the form of these pods is $165,000. And Home Builders Foundation also provided Do Good Multnomah with $75,000 in grant funds that was used to upgrade pods, build flower beds, and otherwise beautify the property. A long list of in-kind donations and improvements to the program over the years are listed in the Do Good report. In addition, the county administration, H3S, and Do Good have built a lot of relationships across the community with service providers and veteran organizations and so on that have become very involved in the program and have given a lot of time and donations to the effort. The AMEN, the American Military Encouragement Network, which has a food pantry in the neighborhood, has been providing food on a regular basis to the village. The Home Builders Foundation, as I mentioned, has provided a significant amount of in-kind contributions and improvements on site. Imperfect Produce provides fresh produce to the village. The Grange, multiple location Granges provide meals and clothing and on-site visits. VFW provides resources, including clothing and food. Lowe's has donated appliances. Home Depot has donated a variety of tools and beautification to the program. Northwest Veterans MC has donated operational supplies, including plates, utensils, toiletries, etc. And the Elks have provided food and general donations. And the village has attracted a number of visits from interested counties and elected officials from throughout Oregon and internationally. We've had a Canadian university, the University of Toronto, came and did a study of the village. The Agape Village founders visited, Deschutes commissioners, the Newburgh mayor, the Tiny Home Coalition, it's a Bend Tiny Home Project. The Anchorage Museum in Alaska visited, and one of the a social services staff person, David Denny, who is the Veterans Outreach Specialist for Clackamas County. He was visiting Alaska this year, and he happened to be walking through the airport and called me because there was an installation in the airport in Anchorage about the Veterans Village in Clackamas County that was a prominent display at the airport. So that was pretty cool. So those are sort of the highlights of the outcomes of the program. It was established as a place to provide a transitional shelter community to veterans experiencing homelessness. It has done that. It has been a successful program in moving veterans experiencing homelessness from that transitional community into permanent housing. It's fully integrated within the Homeless Veteran Coordination Team of Clackamas County. Do Good has worked very well with us and our partners. Before I pass it to Emily Klepper, do the commissioners have any questions about this overview of outcomes?
I don't see any.
All right, Emily, do you want to take it on with respect to outreach to the neighborhood?
Sure, thanks. Hi, Commissioners. I am Emily Klepper, for the record again, Policy Advisor in County Administration. As you all know, I've been involved with the Vets Village project from the beginning. It's very near and dear to my heart. Back in March of 2017, in fact, I accompanied Commissioner Savas and Schrader to visit the neighboring businesses, and just when the village was an idea. So it was my pleasure to be able to reach back out to the businesses and our surrounding community to see if they had any feedback, to hear from them, how after 2 years, how have we been as a neighbor? And as is typical in government, we really don't hear about anything unless there's a problem. And I didn't really get any feedback. I did appreciate that Tom Martin from Precision Trust took the time to have a phone call with me and really expressed his pleasure with us. We are a great neighbor in his estimation. We've only had one issue within the last 2 years, and we worked really collaboratively to handle that situation. So he was really complimentary of us. or the Vets Village. I really attribute most of this to Do Good. They've really done a nice job of building strong relationships in that community, and I really appreciate all of their efforts. And Precision Trust, you know, it didn't go without as an oversight for him, but he happened to mention that Precision Trust has also been able to hire 2 of the village participants over the years. So that's a really big stamp of approval from one of our neighboring businesses. So before, Christina, if you wouldn't mind queuing up that video, but just before we get started, I just want to say thanks to PGA for putting this video together. It's just 4.5 minutes, really short, but we really thought it was important for you to hear directly from the participants, from the people who are living there, what this village means to them. So, Christina, if you would please start.
Clackamas County funds the village. Do Good, we're set up to do all the supportive services. We've gotten a lot of donations, a lot of community support. So we have relationships with different organizations, and we direct those veterans to those organizations depending on their needs. With the ultimate goal of getting them permanently housed within a 2-year stay.
This is the perfect place if a veteran is ready to transition from being homeless to getting housing. I feel that every veteran that comes in here has something that they want to do to accomplish, and they have to just put themselves to the point that they're guaranteed they're going to get out of here.
I owned my own company here for many years, and I never ever thought I would be homeless, ever in my life did I think I was going to be homeless. Compared to where I was at then to now, it's night and day. Again, my whole attitude is positive now because I am moving in a direction.
The Veterans Village has helped me a great deal from the beginning. They offered counseling, they offered resources, so they helped me with first the mental counseling part, and then I went on to want to get a place of my own, and they have people to help you. Just getting a list of places available, I was free to go pick and choose, and found something that I was definitely interested in, and they were also helpful getting me furniture and dishes and just anything and everything.
If you're a veteran and you served the minimal amount of time, the benefits are here, and they will help you out. You'll always have a full belly, a roof over your head, and a very supportive environment for what your goals are. I find this place be a little slice of heaven for me compared to the streets.
I'm set up with a voucher for the new apartments that are opening up. And I'm just waiting for them to tell me it's time to move in, because we've done everything, all the paperwork. Now I'm just to the point where I just need a place to where I can sit down and go, I'm home, I can rest, I don't have to worry about anything. And that's what I feel about it, and that's what they need to feel about. They need to look for that place to where they get the key and you go in your own place.
To me, every human being deserves shelter. Nobody should be out in the cold, and if they have tremendous problems, your community can help you. You have nothing, so suddenly you've got a roof over your head, you've got your own little sacred space, you know that's your space. And that can mean a whole great deal.
Thanks, Christina. Again, my thanks to PGA for producing that. I think it's just nice to hear directly from the people who are impacted about this program. So, do you want to finish and wrap up with the staff recommendations, please?
Sure. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, PGA. That is a heartwarming film. I just wanted to bring your attention, as Rich Swift mentioned, there is a memorandum in the packet that details all of the associated costs with the Veterans Village pilot up to now, from broken down by county department that bore the expense. I want to highlight, and this is in the staff report as well, but Dan Johnson mentioned this just to sort of highlight that one line of the expenditure in that memorandum, the $365,000 plus expended by the development agency on various improvements to the property. The development agency wanted it to be made clear that those expenses were not specific or because of the Veterans Village necessarily, that they were necessary expenses to make the property developable in the future. So those are expenses that would have been incurred by the development agency regardless of whether the village was sited at the property. But aside from that caveat, the total costs, including site improvements, all associated facilities and buildings and pods, all of the services provided by Do Good on contract with Health, Housing, and Human Services for the course of the 2-year pilot is $1,818,000, as you'll see in your memorandum of all costs. Finally, the recommendations. Richard Swift, do you want to take on this part of the conversation?
Team, I'm sorry, you're way over time, so we need to wrap this up so the commissioners can ask questions.
Thanks, Vijay. So I'll be quick here. So we've outlined, laying out 3 different options. Continue the current operation of the program, negotiate an extension of the lease with the development agency while exploring options for the county through H3S to purchase the property for continued use for the program. Direct H3S to explore expanding the program to the full 30 pods as per the site design and pad preparation. This would also entail negotiating an extension of the lease with the development agency and exploring options for purchase. Terminate the program at the close. The third option, to terminate the program at the close of the current lease in October of 21, because the lease does end actually with no extension, no option to extend at this point with in October of the next year. Our recommendation to the board is that the board we recommend to the board that we continue the current operation of the program, negotiate an extension of the lease with the development agency while exploring options for the county through H3S to purchase the property for its continued use as a Veterans Village. And so I will stop there and questions.
Paul?
Well, I just thank you, staff, for preparing all of this, and want to thank everyone involved and my colleagues in a successful program that we all participated in. So great effort and accolades, and it was very powerful to realize the word, how this is spread across the country, and you guys touched on that. So it's a great model, and I think part of that model is Commissioner Schrader, myself, Dan Johnson, and another staff or 2. We did go door to door to all those businesses. We did a lot of groundwork. We did a tremendous amount of public outreach to get buy-in in this, and we made some promises to that, that what we were going to do, and that this was transitional and this was temporary. And I'm inclined to support the staff recommendation of keeping it here and setting something up. However, there's only one step I really want to do, and maybe Emily, you can elaborate a little bit more. But we had at our hearing, and days leading up to the hearing, we had heard from NAOP, the Industrial Commercial Association, a number of concerns about taking industrial land and flipping it for housing, and their concerns about that. So we made a lot of commitments that we were going to, this was going to be a temporary site. So Emily, my question to you is that how, when you did outreach to some of those, the conversation was about this facility being permanent, and is there any more outreach that you think we ought to be doing or that you were unable to do at the time?
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. I reached out in October and sent multiple emails and even followed up with phone calls to reach out and didn't hear anything. Either I wasn't able to, I just would leave a message and not fully connect with folks. So perhaps there might be an opportunity for more community outreach. When talking to Mr. Martin, just right next door, the topic of it remaining did come up, letting him know, hey, this was a pilot. We said it was only going to be temporary. How do you feel if we stay? And he was thumbs up for this, for us remaining. So, and he is one of the larger property owners on the 115th Street area. So perhaps if you want us to, we can do additional outreach.
Well, what I think is a great opportunity for us, obviously there's a need for more sheltering capacity in Clackamas County for all populations, not just veterans. And our discussion today, for example, this morning and whatnot, just reminds me of the value of really getting the community to pull together on something and building trust with the community. One of our goals is building trust. And I think it's terribly important not to pass up number one and ignore that is one of our priorities. And we need to meet that on virtually everything we do. I mean, everything we do. So in the context of this, however, and knowing we need more shelter capacity, we need more buy-in, I think we have an opportunity, number one, to do really, whether it's a town hall and saying perhaps that we had promised to move this site in the future. However, there's support to keep it here. What do you all think? Get buy-in from the community and help launch the success of this, market the success of this and how we did it, so that we can be trusted by our community when it comes to siting the next facility as needed. So not only do I see or feel to fulfill a promise, which we are essentially changing, but not only getting their buy-in specifically, but also leveraging this as an opportunity. It's clear to see that half $500,000 or so of those monies expended went towards infrastructure that was spent by the development agency, knowing that it would be beneficial for future purposes, industrial minded. So Dan, I know you hear that. I recognize that, but that's my suggestion. I'm not here to defer it. Maybe I'm adding a step. So if there's concurrence or thumbs up or head nod that we approve, is it option one, Emily? Yeah, we approve option one, but with the proviso that we do a more significant outreach to assure we got buy-in.
Second.
So Sonia?
Yeah, I have a question. I really appreciate the data on the successful transition of folks out of the Veterans Village to other settings. I'm curious about some things that we were concerned about at the very beginning of this, and one was transportation and how that was going to play out, and not having easy access to services such as grocery stores and so on and so forth. And so I'm just curious, as this has played out, how have those accommodations been met in this location?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is Vahid Brown. Do Good has acquired vehicles that are used and have been used over the last year and a half to provide transportation to their participants to needed appointments and events and things like this. So they have kind of attempted to kind of fill the gap that TriMet leaves in a sense right there. So there's quite a walk. I think it's a little less than a mile to the nearest bus stop. So they've adapted and kind of beefed up their capacity to provide transportation kind of on demand on site. It's also there has been sort of just a coalescence of services at the village itself that kind of limit the need for all food needs, for example, are more than covered by food on site. They actually have to redonate food quite frequently because so much is given to the Veterans Village that there's more than they can use. And so they're actually kind of like a site that redonates food and passes it on to others, including, I think, Fort Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's kind of been two ways of adapting to that location, those challenges, which is to provide transportation support through Do Good and make every effort to provide for the needs of the participants on site.
Thank you for that. So just some thoughts that I have about this. I really like so much about this pilot that has now seems to become a program. However, we're in a real transition point in building a system for homeless services. And so I would be cautious about actually purchasing the property from the development agency. I would much rather see us continue with a lease. And as we build our system for homeless services, see how this plays in, unless there's something that I'm missing as far as costs or, I mean, Rich, you can help me fill in the gaps. We're in the midst of building a system. And I think this is an important part of that system. But if it needs to be, in this location, maybe it will be, maybe another location. I know it was built with the idea of being movable. I'm just hesitant to make that right now, unless there are major cost benefits that I'm not aware of.
Well, I think that related to the purchasing of the property, part of this was honoring a commitment that we made at the beginning of this to the urban renewal in terms of meeting obligations to that, and then also to the development agency in terms of use of their property. And I mean, if we were able to work out purchase, at that point, we would be coming back to the board for a conversation about that and whether that's something we wish to do, whether it makes sense for us to invest that money elsewhere and continue with a lease. I mean, there are options open. The reason this is part of our options, though, is to hold ourselves in obligation to our commitment to the development agency regarding the property. Because that was something that we clearly discussed at the very beginning of this. So we would be coming back to the board at some point to look at, I think, probably ultimately a variety of options. This doesn't cause me a lot of stress just because DDT, development agency, the rest have been such good partners in this conversation. And we certainly gave all this documentation to them to look at prior to our submission for this meeting today. So we spent a lot of time working with them on this. We'll continue doing that. But part of this really is, I think it's important for us to honor our obligation regarding what we said we do if we got to this distance in time regarding this pilot. So here we are, and I think it's important for us to go ahead and do that, at least explore it.
Okay, that sounds good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before I go to Dan and then Ken, I just want to say I really agree with Sonia on this. I think extending the lease is great. Do that. As far as purchasing the property, that's something, sure, look into it. But I think that, like Paul mentioned earlier, this is industrial land. It isn't the best location. At the time, it was really our only option. There may be more options out there, and with the additional money from the Metro measure, there's some possibilities out there. So I don't think that this motion commits us to buying it. But it commits us to look at it and extend the lease.
That is
And
correct.
I'm in total support of that. So Ken, and oh wait, Dan first.
I really want to thank Rich for calling me into this discussion. My apologies for my casual appearance. I wasn't expecting to be here today. Yeah, this is an Oregon State hat. I'm sorry. My apologies for your Duck fan. Couple things about Commissioner Savis's comment on the industrial lands. I do want to remind the board, this was a sliver of the Chow site that we developed in its totality down there. It's at a separate tier, which makes it impossible to develop that larger development. But we did get that entire industrial site developed as a whole. Secondly, just to be clear, I mean, it's not a great industrial site. It's not like those unicorn sites that you see. They're like 10 or 12 acres that are what the market's really looking for. It's about three and a half, I think, maybe 4 acres, give or take. And that market is come and goes. So, but I did want to at least touch on Commissioner Savis's concerns about the industrial development and remind the board it was a part of that larger industrial project that we did do. So.
Okay, Ken?
Yes, I'm just reminded of the reluctance of the neighbors to accept the project in the first place, back when even with the outreach that was done by the commissioners. And now finally, with the success of the project, they're quite accepting of it and seem to be quite willing to have the project remain there. I think we always have to remember that, because we're already hearing how people feel about the motel purchase in the Jennings Lodge area. This is something that is extremely difficult to get people to accept anywhere near where they live. And here we have a successful program. Is it perfectly ideal in setting? No, it's not perfectly ideal, but it's working and working well, and it's put a lot of people into homes. So I think that you should purchase the property, quite frankly, and continue the program right there. Doesn't change the fact that in the future you could sell the property, do something else with it if another opportunity comes up. But getting people to accept any form of homeless shelter and services in their neighborhoods is extremely difficult. And so don't give up on something that we actually have demonstrated can work and has neighbors that accept it and support it.
All right, Paul.
Yeah,
We're over time, so let's.
Right. I appreciate Commissioner Humberson's comments. I wanted to simply add that part of the success of this whole thing was really the public outreach and the processes we went through. So I don't want to have that disregarded going forward, that is an integral part of the success, and we need to capitalize on those learned lessons, and that's a positive lesson that we learned. So the other last thing I want to do, I just want to acknowledge some key people that were in this. You know, Rich, I appreciate the support from your department. Vahid, all your work and working with the homeless veterans and helping us guide us through it, and a number of folks in H3S, and Dan, Johnson, all the different departments that help. My colleague and friend, Commissioner Schrader, who we sat through lots of meetings with the committee, with staff in getting this done to really pave the way for future needs and future sites. So, and Emily, so to speak, the default project manager who lost sleep, worked hard, had the tenacity to keep this going, despite all of the obstacles and all the hoops you had to jump through. I just want to applaud your efforts and your leadership in that whole thing. So kudos, all my colleagues who were there and supported this along the way. Ken, thank you so much for when you first came on, that you listened. You went to a number of these sites I asked you to go to. You joined me in supporting this project and helped make the difference to get this thing moving. So I want to thank you for that as well. I guess we're ready to take the vote, but I'll leave that to the chair.
Yes, Christina, please poll us.
All right, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humberstone?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Richard, Dan, Fahid, and Emily.
Chair, I need to depart. I have to go to my doctor's appointment. So
Okay, great.
I'll try and make it back. I'm not sure I will.
All right, we'll try to get done. Thank you, Gary.
All right, next, merging the hamlet of Beaver Creek and the Karis Community Planning Organization. We have Katie Wilson from Public and Government Affairs to present.
Aye.
Go ahead, Katie.
Hi, everyone. Christina, we may have some Hamlet folks, Tammy Stevens and Bill Merchant, joining us. If you see them, I'd love for them to be able to give some feedback also.
Katie, you have 15 minutes, Katie.
I'm going to make it fast. Okay, so the Hamlet of Beaver Creek and the Karis CPO have expressed interest, or I should say have expressed interest in merging the boundaries to expand participation. And this project started some time ago, and there have been a few delays along the way, but we've done a lot of work to engage both the Hamlet of Beaver Creek community and the Karis CPO community. And the Hamlet of Beaver Creek community voted unanimously at a town hall that they are in support of merging with the Karis CPO that is currently inactive. And the Karis CPO is inactive, so we did not have a town hall because of COVID and all of the challenges of 2020, but we did send out a postcard, which was included in your packet, inviting folks to take an online survey. And we asked them several questions about how, if they were interested in reactivating their CPO, or if they were interested in merging with the Hamlet of Beaver Creek, which was already an established operating CPO for them. And the majority of feedback from the survey results indicate that folks are very interested in community engagement and staying up to date on land use in their area, but they don't have the capacity right now to restart their CPO. So they prefer to merge with the Hamlet of Beaver Creek. As you may know, the Hamlet of Beaver Creek operates as the Beaver Creek CPO as well. So we have included the postcard for you to review. We have, I don't know if Tammy and Bill are here, but I wanted to give them a couple minutes if they are, to just let you know that they are very excited. Here's Bill, very excited about this opportunity to increase participation. Something that the Hamlet board is very passionate about is working with the county to ensure that there is engagement opportunities for land use, especially. Hi, Tammy and Bill. Countywide. And so this is an excellent way to get started in that goal. And I think the Karis community will be very well served by merging with the Hamlet of Beaver Creek. So our staff recommendation is to approve the merging of the Hamlet of Beaver Creek with the Karis CPO. That will increase participation and ensure that there is active representation in land use for both communities. That's my short spiel. Tammy or Bill, did you have anything that you would like to add before the board asks questions?
I know our time is short, so I think first I want to make sure that the commissioners, if there are any questions, that we get those answered first.
Okay.
Well, this could take a couple, 3 hours.
You're mean, Jim.
Ken has his hand up. I think he probably wants to make a motion, but go ahead, Ken.
I do, Mr. Chairman, but I want to compliment staff, Katie, as well as Tammy and Bill in their work. Some of this came about because of a marijuana project proposal in the Karis area, and the folks there weren't able to really represent their interests, but Beaver Creek did help on that one. That was also the impetus for taking a look at our, I guess it's our zoning amendments and making sure that our rural communities notification on a variety of issues was expanded to more than 750 feet, given the size of properties in the rural area. So, and since I live in the area, I'm pleased to make the motion to approve the recommendation.
I'll second that.
Oh.
All right. Further discussion? Christina, this was a tough one for me.
All right. Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries 4-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much. We want to really thank, of course, the whole county PGA staff, Katie, everyone that was in support, but we're really excited to expand our community to the Karis area. Maybe we'll even have a name change on the horizon. And hopefully this summer, we'll all be safe enough to get together and have a little celebration. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this.
I think, Tammy, it's really, truly about the power.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, that's it. You're right, Jim. You figured it out.
Ours, Tammy works.
All right. Congratulations. Thank you. Bill, did you want to add anything?
Thank you. I just wanted to say it's really about the hours Tammy works. It's
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Well
Thank
done,
you.
Kate. You got us back on schedule.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank
Tam.
you.
thank you all.
Okay, so now, of course, we're ahead of schedule, although I've always told staff be present 15 minutes in advance, and I don't see that's the case, so I'll have to deal with that offline, but would you like to take a short break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
3 o'clock then.
All right. Thank you. Go on then. Gary, what's on the schedule?
Yes, next is grant process update and a county administrator's authority related to grants. We have our team from the finance department to present, led by Krista Wolf and Matt Westbrook and Andrew Naylor from county council. Commissioners, we originally brought this to you and you wanted more information. So this is why this is back to you again, hopefully to make a decision. So I'm not sure who's starting today, but please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here. So as Gary said, we originally came to the board on issues back on September 29th, and we had a conversation about grants. And the topic of that conversation was also about, could we give the county administrator some additional authority to be able to approve grants of up to $150,000. At that time, the board asked for an overview on grant processes, which County Finance has been diligently working on a big update to our grant processes and our policies and manual. So today we're going to give you a little bit of that overview, let you know some of the major changes that are here and reasons why. And Matt's going to walk us through that presentation. And then after Matt does that, he's going to hand us over to Andrew, and Andrew is going to share a draft resolution. Matt, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Westbrook, the Senior Compliance Specialist for the Finance Department. As requested, we're going to go through a little bit of grant information that you should know because it intersects with your jobs as county commissioners. One of the first things we want to point out is that the federal government is moving from the concept of grants to the concept of financial assistance, which incorporates grants, but also other forms of financial assistance, such as direct appropriations, cooperative agreements, etc. So our grants manual is now the financial assistance manual, and you'll see that term frequently. One of the things we did for the board at the request of county admin a few years ago was to create a financial assistance application lifecycle form, which requires departments to provide information to you about the nature of the grants that they want to apply for to better help you make an informed decision about whether to grant permission to apply. The form requires the departments to think through long-term ramifications of a particular award. How is it going to affect the county in terms of employment, in terms of the mission of the county, in terms of the kind of programs that we're hosting. It forces the department to think through and identify community partners where it may be appropriate. And it provides an initial assessment of funder requests for reasonableness and required county resources. We provide this information to you so you know what we're getting into when we apply for an award. And that's what you sign off on after you review this form. The next thing you'll intersect with quite frequently is when we accept financial assistance. So the first slide was applying for it. Now we are accepting financial assistance. This will show up on your consent agenda normally. Once an award has been made, the award document is reviewed by council and then put on your consent agenda for final acceptance, including amendments that increase value or match requirements. And in a few moments, Andrew Naylor will be presenting a resolution designating a delegating authority to county administrator to accept awards up to $150,000 on behalf of the BCC. Indirect cost recovery is normally prohibited, so you won't see that in an award document that comes before you, unless the funder has offered a specific rate or has otherwise negotiated a rate with the county. If we accepted on federal awards, if we accepted what's called the de minimis rate of 10%, we would be required to accept that rate on all of our awards from the federal government, which in the case of, say, DTD, would require them to accept a rate significantly less than they are currently getting. So we cannot exercise the standard rate from the feds, and we have to have them provide us a special rate, either negotiated with us, or it just comes with the agency regulations. Accepting departments are responsible for all compliance matters and program reporting, and finance compiles and signs federal financial reports based on the data provided in the county's accounting system. So if you have questions about the program side of an award, that is the responsibility of the department, and finance does the financial reporting side. Another thing the board asked us to do a few years ago was to create a competitive process for the issuance of grants. And you'll have to forgive me because my computer is a bit laggy today. We created a process called a NOFO, or a Notice of Funding Opportunity. Oh, there we go. And then it has disappeared. We thought if we have a competitive process for the issuance of contracts, we should have one for the issuance of county subrecipient agreements. And so that is what we created. Prior to issuing subrecipient agreements, departments are required to create a notice of funding opportunity, which will be hosted on a specific county webpage, generally open for applications for about 30 days. You can find these notice of funding opportunities on the main county page. It's clackamas.us/grants. Take you right to the page where we have all of them listed. Departments receive applications from potential awardees, and they create their own scoring processes for the selection of those awardees. This process helps to minimize conflict of interest risks, increases open competition, and provides transparency to the community, as all records are subject to record retention requirements, even the applications that are not funded. It might help at this point to define what a subrecipient agreement is versus a contract. This is quite confusing, can be. Subrecipient agreements are issued when we ask an outside organization to carry out a county program or a portion of a program that's funded by local dollars or outside financial assistance. Subrecipient agreements are subject to the Financial Assistance Management Manual, and any requirements passed through the county from our funding agencies if the agreement is funded with financial assistance. We also issue subrecipient agreements out of our NOFO process. Again, you'll have to forgive the lag. While this is catching up, I'm just going to read from my slides. County finance is closely involved in the issuance of federal subrecipient agreements. Non-federal subrecipient agreement issuances are the responsibility of issuing county departments. Subrecipient agreements, like contracts, must be reviewed by council for legal sufficiency. Federal subrecipient agreements require extensive ongoing monitoring performed jointly by finance, by me, and the issuing department. Amounts expended by county subrecipients funded with federal dollars become part of the county's auditable federal expenditure base, what we call our SEFA, our Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. I'll get to the last slide here. Apologies for the freezing.
And think we've all become well versed in the technical difficulties and challenges associated with Zoom and bandwidth.
So again, I'm just going to read from my slide while we wait for this to catch up. Process number 5 outlines finances responsibilities. The financial accounting or reporting team, which we call FAR, performs the draws of financial assistance for the county, as well as the accounting and the required monthly, quarterly, or annual financial reporting. FAR prepares the county's schedule of expenditures of federal awards and coordinates the single audit, which we have every year. Finance monitors changes in financial assistance regulations and changing business needs. We update the financial assistance manual, business processes, and forms. And earlier this month, a policy and updated financial assistance manual were sent to the unions for their review, and we'll have a new manual very shortly. Finance is also responsible for providing information and training to county departments on the practices outlined in the manual, and I will be performing those trainings with departments over the next few months. And now we'll turn it over to Andrew to discuss the limited delegation of grant signing authority.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Again, this came to you originally in issues at the request of finance to delegate to the county administrator, authority to sign some degree of grants. The proposal was just to track what was in the LCRBs, the same $150,000 language. The resolution that was in your packet today, it's almost verbatim what's already in our code for what the county administrator can sign. So the purpose of the request was just to clarify that the county administrator can sign as part of routine business, and to clarify that he can sign in an emergency situation if the board is in recess. This was not requested by the county administrator. Gary did not want this authority. This is something finance has requested, so probably worth clarifying that. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but that is the proposal or draft resolution we came up with. It can be anything this board is comfortable with. It could be no delegation. It could be some variation of what's already on paper. It really is entirely up to this board what it wants to delegate in terms of its authority to sign grants.
Does anybody have any problems with the proposal?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve option 1.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve option 1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Christina, please poll us.
All right, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you guys very much. That wasn't too painful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, well, once again, now we're ahead of schedule and Stan is not present for the next session. The next session starts at 3:30 and it's ambulance service contract, but you could go to Commissioner Communications, I forgot, so.
Let's do that. So how about Ken, would you like to start?
Well, mine will be pretty brief. I just would note that I'm sure you saw in your email that tourism has hired two of their staff back, which bodes well for reinstituting our tourism program slowly but surely. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Was one of them Shirley?
Oh, cute.
The other slowly?
Yes.
Oh, Sonia, tell us how it is out on that farmland behind you.
Okay, I will. So, you know, my daughter had a baby, right?
No.
Well, yes, she did. In fact, Christina, could you put this up?
Oh.
That is little Isla Joy. Okay, you can take her down now. I know everybody wants to keep staring at the baby, but this picture behind me, so for everybody knows I go for my early morning walks in the mornings, and for about a week before she was born, I would take a picture as the sun was rising. And I think this was like 4 days before she was born, but this is Lusher Farm.
Oh, wow.
As you can see, like the sun is rising. It was an incredible morning, which is absolutely beautiful. So that's my picture for the day. And I see, Jim, you have a cow there. That's really awesome. Oh, and a little baby one, little baby cow. Okay, so my job is to keep everyone informed on what's happening with the homeless services measure. And Monday, I had to chair the Association for Oregon Counties Human Services meeting, which got me an hour late to the Metro meeting. And so fortunately we had staff there, and Brenda was going to come on and give us a quick little update for the first hour. Brenda, are you there? Where are you? I don't see her.
I'm moving her in as we speak.
There she is.
Here I am.
So just high level, it seemed like it was pretty basic from what I understood from the agenda, but I just was looking forward to you giving a little bit of an update of the first hour, and then I'll do the second hour of the.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I did attend all of the Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee meeting on Monday. The first hour was devoted mostly to housekeeping items, but Metro's being really diligent about training the committee members about potential conflicts of interest, and they talked more about that on Monday. They also spent time defining terms so that everyone would have a common understanding. Terms like housing first, supportive services, what that is, and the flexibility of it. They also spent some time going over the 10 requirements that are included or that need to be met in each jurisdiction's local implementation plan. There are 10 of those requirements, and 2 of them are really, I would say, probably the foundation. And the first is the analysis of inequitable outcomes. So looking at where we're having issues. And then also inclusive community engagement to address those and to have input into our plan. So that was the main focus of the first hour.
Thank you, Brenda. And then the second hour was a lot of logistics as far as how the group was going to function together. And I loved it that staff had asked that the electeds go into an observational role. And yeah, basically, the message was, although they didn't tell us not to talk, I got the message that this was for the committee to coalesce and come together. And the conversations were really interesting that the group had. And one was about, well, public comment. When should the public comment? Should the public comment before every decision is made, or should the public comment in the beginning? Should there be a specified time for public comment? Should this work? And the committee really had a lot of robust conversation about that. And then another issue came up. And Brenda, I don't know if you thought this one was really interesting, but the whole idea of equity in an oversight committee. So the group really wanted to make sure about certain quorum requirements and when decisions are made, and what happens if the people on the committee that are members of communities of color are all opposed to something and everybody else is in favor of it. What do you do? How do you address those kinds of issues? I loved what Dan Fowler, our representative on the committee, said about, and I want us to always do this. I wish I would have heard this a long time ago because I think it would have really helped in leadership. But Dan Fowler suggested that whenever there's a disagreement, just to really be conscientious about leaning in to the minority voice, the voice that isn't heard, and really work hard to try to meet those interests as a group, and then you can get a better result as far as consensus. So I really appreciated that piece, wanted to share that with all of you. And then Martha, I want to make sure that you're knowing when these are happening. If they just get on your calendar that I want to make sure that that's, because I am not doing a very good job of telling you. All of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I have a Metro Oversight Committee. And I'm playing catch up myself.
Actually did, but the thing is, I cannot attend as a participant. I attend as part of the public.
Oh, good. But they are on your calendar, and that
And I took. I just want to say exactly what Brenda said. I took copious notes about the local implementation plans, the oversight committee's role, the scope of the draft planning, and the 10 elements that they're looking for. So yeah, I don't need to really say anything. I just want to listen in and be aware, but I did get a chance to listen, and they talked about metrics, outcomes tracking, annual outcome goals, and the oversight committee's job is review for consistency. So, and then our IGAs, I guess what our local plan IGAs are. I also have the LIP one on my schedule where, again, I'll just listen in. And you've got, yeah. So that's good.
And then AOC was a big, long day on Monday, wasn't it, Martha? Oh my gosh. Now that I'm actually officially on the board, I'm like, wow, thank you, Martha Schrader, for your years and years and years.
Yes, there you go.
Of service on there. But really some fascinating issues. So this legislative session, I just heard also now that there will be a special session on Monday. Right. Is that right, Gary? I got that through. And the issues that were important, which are so important to all of us in Clackamas County, of course, are trying to look at what we're going to do with landlord relief and the landlord relief fund and what that's going to look like. Really, really important. And I'm hoping that is a topic for the special session so that we can get that somewhat structure, get some structure around that, because it's a really important part of our COVID relief and emergency. Other issues really interesting around the vaccines. Should children be required to be vaccinated before they go to school? Our Human Services Committee absolutely supported that, with a couple people who objected, but the overall counties did not. And that was an interesting conversation, I must say. And I'm trying to think if there were other, I think that's it for the big takeaway, big items. Oh, wait. Oh, this other issue that the committee and AOC is continuing to work on is the Medicaid exclusion for people that are in our jails. Really want the federal government to fix that because it's a real problem for us at the local level. So those are the key issues.
Great. So just let me add to that. I actually did not attend the board meeting because I had a dentist appointment. So I said goodbye to everybody at that point, and basically sat in on transportation and community development. It looks like that's going to be a committee that I want to keep track of, at least now. And I did hear the conversation about the vaccines. I thought that was fascinating. I think that that is certainly gives us an idea of the rifts that we have between urban and rural, and how some people feel that requiring vaccines is infringing on parental rights, which I thought was kind of interesting to me. And I think that most of us from this end of the state kind of feel that it's a public health issue. It does not infringe on rights. It's really trying to protect everyone from things. So we'll see how that plays out. And I hope people, when the COVID vaccine becomes available to us, get their vaccine. So that's all I've got.
All right. Well, one thing I am not going to miss, after 20 years in this, there's a lot of gut knowledge that you have, experience that you have. And frankly, sometimes I think we study things to death. And at some point, you've got to make a decision. You can't wait 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, sometimes a few months to make a decision when you know what the decision should be in the beginning. Everyone should take the virus, the shot. What's the what?
Vaccine.
Vaccine, there you go. Everyone should take the vaccine. There's no question about it, but making them, I don't know. It's, I was listening last night that the Latino population has not gotten enough information. They don't understand whether it's safe or not, and that we should make a huge effort, since they're the ones who are most impacted by the virus, that they need to feel that they can trust that the vaccine is safe, that they're not going to be asking for proof of citizenship and other things like that. And that needs to be made in the appropriate language. But anyway, I guess we're ready to move on to the next issue, Gary?
Yes, we're ready for the next policy session, amendment to the ambulance services contract. We have Health, Housing, and Human Services staff, Rich Swift and Philip Mason Joyner, to present. Wait for them to get into the room. All right, go ahead, Rich.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see you all again, and this has certainly been a topic or a day of intriguing and interesting topics, and here we are with ambulance, a topic near and dear to my heart. So what we have before the board today is a review of what we're considering in terms of amendment to the ambulance contract, which is essentially an agreement between the county and AMR to begin negotiations on a performance-based contract. We have a presentation that Philip will walk you through on that also has a timeline, or basically a project timeline that has been vetted through the EMS Council. We do have actually also a letter of support for our process from the EMS Council we received yesterday. And then in addition is a resolution for the board's consideration that either the board could vote to pass today or move to the business meeting on Thursday, or I guess do nothing with. So what I'll do is I will turn it over to Philip, and then in terms of process, what we're planning on, and then we can take a quick look at the amendment. In terms of structure, it's pretty straightforward. And Andrew Naylor from the County Council's office is here to answer any questions about that. And so with that, I will turn it over to Philip, please.
Thank you, Rich. Good afternoon, everyone. Just going to quickly share my screen. Are you seeing?
Yep. Sure, Philip.
Just 1 second. Okay. Hopefully folks can see the PowerPoint slides. So we have just some slides to provide a high-level overview of the amendment and the work that we've been able to negotiate with AMR and review with stakeholders to get their input in the past week and their support to move forward with this proposal for your consideration today. So in terms of background, we have worked on drafting the contract amendment that's included in the packet. This is amendment number 2 to the current Clackamas County Ambulance Services contract. It is our intent to move forward with the development of a performance-based contract and extension process. This process, it really lends itself to help us improve the contractual structure for the way that we assure ambulance service delivery in Clackamas County, in the Clackamas ambulance service area. And it still supports the ability to move forward with the continued advancement, the enhancement, and the innovation across the system that we all are working, striving every day to provide for the patients and the users of the system. So highlights from the amendments, the contract language that is in the packet. The county and AMR desire to enter into this amendment it helps to identify the framework in which the negotiations will occur, with the goal of ultimately having another amendment to this contract, which will provide the new performance-based structure. It identifies the key elements that the parties anticipate will be included, and some of these elements are reflected here. So a new term criteria to be developed, a new process for how evaluations and extensions will occur. We anticipate that there will be a comprehensive auditing process, programmatic, performance, and financial, and that's expected to be within 18 to 24-month periods. There'll be the existing performance metrics within the the existing contracts and new ones based on criteria that our EMS council and other stakeholders have helped us to provide input on, which we reviewed at last week's meeting. Additional terms and conditions that we've agreed to work in good faith on with AMR include establishment of new daily unit hour utilization requirements. So the amount of hours that ambulances are in service in the community, that there be minimum expectations around that, which there currently is not. That there will be a process for how standardized equipment will happen and modifications and upgrades to equipment. That software between the county, between AMR, between other partners such as our local fire agencies, that the software will be able to talk to each other. And really that is all about improving patient care as it moves, as a patient might move from one agency to another. And all of the reporting requirements, the way that that is approached based on this new framework will have to be revised. As staff and after a lot of discussion with stakeholders, the EMS Council, their letter and the discussions that we've had with partners, folks are really very clear that in order to do this process in a meaningful, thoughtful, strategic way and do the work well, the ask is for a one-year process. This is a nice summary which we worked on as county staff with the chairs of the EMS Council on some of the high-level milestones and a realistic date for how each of these milestones could be completed. So, making this change is significant. It does create quite a bit of work. I do hear loud and clear that a lot of the stakeholders are actively responding to the pandemic out in the community, providing patient care for in the COVID environment, and also helping to engage in vaccination efforts, but also recognizing that this is a huge opportunity and priority for the county. And I think that this timeline, we're happy to answer any specific questions about these different components. But we did want to share that we did reach out, engage some partners, get some feedback, and think that this is a reasonable approach for us to move forward with.
I don't see any questions, maybe a comment that, this is what I was interested in is a commitment to move forward on a performance-based contract. And we did receive a letter from the EMS Council in support of the proposed amendment. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to make a motion to support the amendment. Is that the wordings you would want? Yes. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Yes.
second the motion, or I'll make a formal motion to approve option one.
Okay.
Option one is what you want.
Second, I'll second. The motion is approve option number one. Any further discussion? Christina, please poll us.
All right, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries 4-0. Great, well, thank you very much. Good work. Glad we got this far.
This will be on your consent agenda this Thursday for final approval.
And direction from the board on the resolution. Andrew, if you can help provide options for how to move that forward if the board chooses.
Sure. That was in response to a request by the board to have a resolution as well. It's certainly not required. You can pass it today if you like. You can reserve it for Thursday. It's really up to you if you still want it. We have a draft ready. If you have any changes or additions you'd like to make to that, we certainly could do so, and then have it again on Thursday. So yeah, looking for direction from the board on how you'd like to approach that one.
I think, Sonia, this was your idea, wasn't it? A resolution?
Yeah, I just threw it out there. I thought the resolution was drafted well, and I'd be in support of us. It's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you want to have that on the consent agenda, or if you'd like to approve it now, or I'm not sure how the I guess we can approve it now. It needs to be part of the
Consent.
consent agenda. Is that right, Andrew?
You cannot approve it now. It has to be at your business meeting, but you could do consent, a discussion item, anything you want on Thursday.
Consent. Let's
Okay.
just put it in the consent agenda. We got 6 pages already. Might as well make it 7.
So here's what I suggest. Draft a resolution, email it to the board as soon as you can, today or tomorrow morning, just so they can take a peek at it, and then put it on the agenda for Thursday as well.
I think it's already
drafted.
done.
The resolution is done?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it in the packet for Thursday?
Yeah, it was in the packet for today as well. It's
Yeah.
it's right behind the amendment in the materials.
I'm sorry, it's already there. Okay, never mind.
Gary, you have to know everything. You
I
have
do.
to read everything. You have to know that it's there.
I had a momentary lapse.
That's all right. We'll forgive you this once.
Thanks.
All right, so put it on the consent agenda. All right, now we got all we need.
We're done.
Okay,
You're done with
great.
the ambulance. You're actually done for the day, commissioners.
Oh,
Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your hard work.
Yep.
Thanks. All right, see you guys later.